Welcome to another edition of Things That Should Have Stayed in the Draft Folder. I'm Ethan Blake, and tonight's speech is a monument to overconfidence and underthinking. We've got mixed metaphors, mingled logic, and the kind of delivery that screams, "I'm not wrong, just misunderstood by reality." But don't worry, I brought clarity, comedy, and enough cynicism to light up the room. Together, we'll break it down line by painful line and rebuild it as a cautionary tale, because sometimes silence really is golden.
And I know as I say that, millions of liberal sphincters just tightened. Oh my God, Bill, are you going to say something nice about him? What I'm going to do is report exactly what happened. You decide what you think about it. And if that's not enough pure Trump hate for you, I don't give a fuck. What a shocker that the people who see everything through the lens of race and sex see their election loss as a result of racism and sexism. Yes, if only we weren't so irredeemably unenlightened, we would have elected a black president by now. Oh, what, we did? Oh, right, and then re-elected him. Maybe you missed it because it wasn't on TikTok.
All right, folks, it's finally here. The video you've been waiting for. Bill Maher just visited the White House, and while he hasn't gone full MAGA, let's just say he didn't hold back when it came to torching the Democrats. Sure, he's criticized them before, but this time, the punches hit harder, the takedown was ruthless, and the truth bombs were absolutely explosive. If you're someone who appreciates raw, unfiltered takes and brutal political reality checks, you're in the right place. Smash that subscribe button, turn on notifications, and get ready, because what's coming next is going to shake things up in a big way.
And now for what I know you've all been waiting for, I'd like to give you my book report on my visit to the White House. Okay, as you know, 12 days ago I had dinner with President Trump, a dinner that was set up by my friend Kid Rock, because we share a belief that there's got to be something better than hurling insults from 3,000 miles away. And let me first say that to all the people who treated this like it was some kind of summit meeting, you're ridiculous. Like I was going to sign a treaty or something. I have no power. I'm a fucking comedian, and he's the most powerful leader in the world. I'm not the leader of anything, except maybe a contingent of centrist-minded people who think there's got to be a better way of running this country than hating each other every minute.
Bill Maher kicked off the evening with his trademark self-deprecating humor, reminding everyone he's just a humble comedian who somehow found himself inside the White House. But the lighthearted tone didn't last long. Without hesitation, Maher launched his first verbal grenade at the Democrats, questioning whether governing a nation should require more than just non-stop outrage and ideological warfare. He didn't pull any punches, describing the Democratic Party as fractured, consumed by tribalism, and intoxicated by a sense of moral superiority so intense that even longtime liberals are beginning to slip away. It's exhausting, he suggested, hinting at the quiet exodus from a party that seems more interested in virtue signaling than actual solutions. Though Maher made it clear he's no Trump loyalist, he had no problem shining a harsh light on the dysfunction within the left. The Democrats, he warned, are fast becoming their own worst enemy, and he wasn't done yet.
Meet up in person. Maybe it'll be different. Spoiler alert, it was. First good sign, before I left for the Capitol, I had my staff collect and print out this list of almost 60 different insulting epithets that the president has said about me. Things like stupid, dummy, lowlife dummy, sleazebag, sick, sad, stone cold crazy. Really a dumb guy, fired like a dog, his show is dead. There's 60. I brought this to the White House because I wanted him to sign it, which he did.
Before we dive deeper, credit where it's due. President Trump undeniably has a sense of humor, and that alone puts him miles ahead of today's increasingly humorless left. Bill Maher even brings this up later in the video, and he's not wrong. The contrast is striking. Trump often comes across as naturally witty, relaxed, and even likable in his delivery, even when throwing sharp jabs. Now compare that to Kamala Harris, whose every laugh line feels overly rehearsed, focus grouped, and still somehow falls flat. There's a clear difference between being genuinely funny and trying way too hard, and the left, unfortunately, keeps landing in the latter category. It's not just awkward, it's painfully transparent. But enough of that commentary for now. Let's jump back into the clip and see where Maher takes it next.
Well, as I say that, millions of liberal sphincters just tightened. Oh my God, Bill, are you going to say something nice about him? What I'm going to do is report exactly what happened. You decide what you think about it. And if that's not enough pure Trump hate for you, I don't give a fuck. So no, I didn't go MAGA. And to the president's credit, there was no pressure to. After we left the Oval Office, he showed me the little room off the office, you know, the one where Clinton used to. Okay. The blowjob room. Okay. Well, not anymore. That's where they keep the merch now.
I made this point in our last video, and it bears repeating loudly and clearly. Bill Maher has been a lifelong Democrat. He's championed their causes, spoken up for their values, voted for their candidates, and defended their platform for decades. And yet, not once was he invited to the White House. Not during the Obama years, not under Biden. Nothing. Now sure, no president is obligated to extend an invitation, but the fact that Donald Trump, a man Maher has publicly clashed with for years, is the one who finally opens the doors, that's not just surprising, it's headline-worthy. It speaks volumes about who's willing to tolerate disagreement and who isn't. And let's not forget, Maher made the most of the moment. That Clinton joke he cracked? Pure gold. One of the rare times the room erupted in genuine laughter, not because they were supposed to, but because it was actually funny. Maher didn't hold back, and he didn't play safe. In fact, he continued to speak with surprising admiration about Trump. Don't believe it? Take a listen for yourself.
Just for starters, he laughs. I'd never seen him laugh in public, but he does, including at himself. And it's not fake. Believe me, as a comedian of 40 years, I know a fake laugh when I hear it. And I thank you for that. Okay, example. In the Oval Office, he was showing me the portraits of presidents, and he pointed to Reagan and said, in all seriousness, you know, the best thing about him, his hair. I said, well, there was also that whole bringing down communism thing, waiting for the button next to the Diet Coke button to get pushed and I go through the trap door. But no, he laughed, he got it.
This is a far cry from the monstrous caricature the left and their media allies have pushed for years about Donald Trump. According to their narrative, he's a joyless, rage-fueled villain obsessed with tearing America apart, an orange-tinted apocalypse wrapped in a gold-plated tower. They've painted him as someone devoid of humor, humility, or even basic decency. But then comes Bill Maher, a longtime Trump critic, offering a very different picture. Maher describes Trump not as the dystopian dictator the left warned about, but as a surprisingly relaxed, charismatic, and even funny president, unafraid to joke, even at the expense of his predecessors. That alone flips the entire script. Maher's account doesn't just humanize Trump, it highlights the left's glaring double standards. When their guy cracks a joke, it's hailed as charming or presidential. But when Trump does it, suddenly it's dangerous, offensive, or a threat to democracy. The hypocrisy practically shouts from the rooftops. And coming from Maher, a voice the left once embraced, it hits even harder. But that's just the beginning. Up next, Maher takes direct aim at the legacy media and their chronic case of Trump derangement syndrome. You won't want to miss what he says next.
At one point, we were walking through it is an amazing tour of the whole house. And I don't remember exactly what we were talking about, but it must have been something with the 2020 election, because I know he used the word lost. And I distinctly remember saying, wow, I never thought I'd hear you say that. He didn't get mad. He's much more self-aware than he lets on in public. Look, I get it. It doesn't matter who he is at a private dinner with a comedian. It matters who he is on the world stage. I'm just taking as a positive that this person exists, because everything I've ever not liked about him was, I swear to God, absent, at least on this night with this guy.
For years, the Democrats and their loyal media allies have relentlessly pushed a tightly controlled narrative. President Trump was a dangerous authoritarian, a delusional egomaniac who refused to accept the 2020 election results. They painted him as a threat to democracy, a tyrant, even a fascist, plastering every headline with alarmist accusations. His every word was twisted, taken out of context, and weaponized for maximum outrage. But then comes Bill Maher, not exactly a MAGA supporter, admitting on camera that much of what was said about Trump was overblown, distorted, or outright false. Maher doesn't hold back. He bluntly states that words were deliberately put in Trump's mouth, and the media eagerly ran with the script. The intent was never to inform, but to frame a narrative. And with a few honest sentences, Maher sets fire to that carefully constructed illusion. He even points out that Trump did, in fact, concede the 2020 election. Perhaps not with grace, but he acknowledged it. Maher's admission shatters the media's long-standing portrayal and confirms what many have suspected. The press wasn't just reporting. They were directing the drama, and now that script is unraveling. In recent episodes, Maher has made it clear. He sees the Democratic Party spiraling downhill faster than you can say Kamala Harris.
One must tell the usual suspects on the far left that the saying is, when you're in a hole, stop digging, not keep digging. Talk about doubling down on what got you fucked in the first place. Even the one concession I've heard a few people on the losing side offer, that liberals should stop saying the Trump voters are stupid, comes with a kind of unspoken parentheses. We know they are stupid, just don't say it. Yeah, I got bad news for you. They don't have a monopoly on stupid. You wear Queers for Palestine t-shirts and masks 2 years after the pandemic ended. And you can't define woman, I mean person who menstruates. You're the teachers' union education party, and you've turned schools and colleges into a joke. You just lost a crazy contest to an actual crazy person.
The true villains in this ongoing political saga aren't who the mainstream media would have you believe. Despite the constant demonization, the so-called monster has never been Donald Trump. The real culprits are the Democrats and their media echo chambers, MSNBC, CNN, The View, and all the usual suspects. These are the institutions that have tirelessly pushed divisive ideologies, extreme policies, and toxic narratives that have dragged America to the edge. They promote open borders while ignoring the consequences for national security. They weaponize identity politics, pitting Americans against each other instead of fostering unity. They glorify disorder in the name of progress, while branding anyone who disagrees as dangerous or intolerant. These are the forces eroding the nation's foundation, all under the disguise of righteousness. And through it all, they keep pointing fingers at Trump, projecting their own radicalism onto him as a smokescreen. It's the oldest political maneuver. Manufacture the chaos, then scapegoat your enemy for the fallout. But now, more and more Americans are waking up. They're seeing past the noise, past the spin, and recognizing who's really pulling the strings and who's been lying to them all along.
You love to speak truth to power, and we always should, but you have completely lost the ability to speak truth to bullshit. The Democratic polling firm Blueprint told Democrats months ago that black voters, aka their supposedly liberal base, were more likely to find the president too liberal than too conservative. They also found that voters didn't just want Harris to distance herself from Biden, they wanted her to distance herself from what they believe the entire Democratic Party has become, a Portlandia sketch.
In the 2020 election, the black community showed up in powerful numbers to support the Biden-Harris ticket. Pew Research reported that roughly 87% of black voters backed the Democratic candidates. an overwhelming margin that proved essential to their victory. Kamala Harris, as the first Black and South Asian woman on a major party ticket, was hailed as a groundbreaking symbol of progress. But 5 years later, the enthusiasm that once fueled that support has noticeably faded. The momentum has shifted, and for good reason. A major factor in this shift is the Democratic Party's increasingly radical, woke agenda, an approach that even liberal commentator Bill Maher has repeatedly criticized. Many traditional voters, especially within the Black community, feel alienated by progressive ideologies that seem disconnected from their core values. Ideas like allowing individuals to self-identify gender regardless of biology, eliminating clear definitions of what it means to be a woman, or permitting biological males into women's locker rooms are not just fringe debates. They strike directly at beliefs rooted in family, faith, and identity. These concepts feel foreign and often offensive to many within the Black community. In fact, as early as 2021, strategists and community leaders cautioned Democrats that their message was drifting too far left, but those warnings fell on deaf ears. Now, the party is facing the consequences of that growing divide, and it may only get worse.
What a shocker that the people who see everything through the lens of race and sex see their election loss as a result of racism and sexism. Yes, if only we weren't so irredeemably unenlightened, we would have elected a Black president by now. Oh, what, we did? Oh, right, and then re-elected him. Maybe you missed it because it wasn't on TikTok. And sexism? Hillary got 3 million more votes than Trump, which in a normal country would be called a victory. It wasn't 21st century sexism that prevented a woman from being president. It was the Electoral College.
Whether he meant to or not, Bill Maher makes one point crystal clear. Donald Trump is, without question, a more capable, results-oriented, and grounded leader than Kamala Harris could ever hope to be. Trump ran on a platform of real, tangible goals, revitalizing the economy, enforcing border security, strengthening immigration laws, and restoring traditional American values. And whether people loved him or loathed him, he delivered on many of those promises. Under his leadership, markets surged, wages increased, and a renewed sense of national pride began to take shape. Contrast that with what the Democrats offered: empty slogans, emotionally charged rhetoric, and hollow virtue signaling. They didn't campaign on uplifting policies for the average American. Instead, they leaned heavily on fear, outrage, and hashtag activism. Rather than unify the country, they amplified identity politics, sowed division, and pushed fringe ideologies that alienated everyday citizens. So is it any surprise that public sentiment is shifting? Americans are tired of theater and hungry for action. They want leaders, not performers. And when you stack up the track records, there's no debate. Trump takes the lead, Kamala trails far behind, and voters are noticing. That wraps up today's video. If you found it thought-provoking, hit the like button and subscribe for more content just like this. See you next time.